Are you wondering where to live but aren't sure where to begin?
In this video, I'm going to show you how to find the best place to live for you so that you can live life in an environment you love and feel confident in your choice.
We're Ted and Diane, and we've moved our family around a lot by choice. We've moved from Silicon Valley to Lake Tahoe to Puerto Rico and back again, with a bit of nomadic living around the U.S. in between.
While we love living in Lake Tahoe, we're always on the prowl. We're starting to research the best places to live in America as we approach retirement. We hope you'll join us on our wild ride because we'd love to help you find your dream spot too.
Step number 1, assess where you are. My first big move as an adult was out of Stockton, California. I didn't like that it was flat, there weren't enough trees, I didn't like the hot summers or the boring culture. And I hated not having a cool downtown with funky stores and restaurants. I did like the small city conveniences of having a couple of malls. We did have some nice parks. I liked the winter fog and the mini canals around town. And I liked that you could drive to either the mountains or the sea in just a couple of hours. But I was ready to try something new. So take a look at where you live right now. What do you hate? What do you love? Make a list of likes and dislikes to start gaining clarity on what's important to you in a place to live.
When we thought about moving to Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay, and towns within, I thought it would be very useful to create a spreadsheet that could help us narrow our choices on where to visit. The sheet is an effective way to quickly compare and score locations for attributes that are really important to you. So in the first column, list out all the attributes that are most important to you, which might be some of the following. For example, shopping, restaurants, affordability, crime, proximity to a hospital, proximity to an airport, those sorts of things. It can be a pretty extensive list. For more accurate scoring, add a column that measures the importance to you on a scale of 0 to 10. A weight of 0 means it's not important to you at all. A value of 10 means it's extremely important to you. Next, you want to add columns for each place, for example, Austin or Miami, that you want to compare. Rank each attribute 0 to 10. Generally, high values are good or desirable, and low values are bad or undesirable. So for example, high affordability would be very desirable, and that would be a 10, for example. To determine the rating value of an attribute, you really need to research the place online and make a judgment call. Often in the US, you can find online statistics almost everywhere to help you find these very quickly. For example, crime and population. So if you are using importance to weigh these attributes, you really want to create a second column that computes this. Then for each place, you want to create an overall score, which is basically the summation of all the weighted averages that you have, or the basic scores that you have. So if all this seems daunting and you want the formulas done for you, go ahead and download our free Excel sheet, or you can make a copy of our Google Sheet and you can start using it immediately. We'll include instructions. We really hope you enjoy it. It really helped us in our travels. Just click the links in the description below. When you start filling in your spreadsheet, I recommend that you actually make the first place where you live now. It'll be really interesting, I think, for you to compare where you live now to where you're going to be moving. It's not required, but it's kind of interesting because you may find that you want to stay.
Step number 3, Google for ideas. Now this is the fun part where you research different locations and visit them virtually to see what resonates. Before we moved to Puerto Rico, we were seriously considering Chile, which is a big country and a lot of interesting cities and towns. I did a ton of internet research and narrowed the options down to a handful of places that we wanted to go see in person. One of the first things we considered was whether we wanted to live in a big city or a more rural location. The more I researched, the more I realized that I loved not too expensive towns with lakes and mountains and not too far from a big city and a good airport, but in a climate where I could grow my own food and keep chickens. So I Googled for the top small towns in Chile, the best resort towns, best places to find cheap farmland, just to get started. I scoured Google Maps and expat forums as well. We ended up deciding that Puerto Varas, Valdivia, Pucón, and Talca were the most interesting places that we wanted to see. Once you get into this research, you're going to find a ton of websites with blog posts and listicles that cover everything from the top places for entrepreneurs, to the top towns to raise a family, to the top places to live off-grid. YouTube is also a phenomenal resource for learning more about what it's like to live in any area of interest. Put anything that looks interesting down on your spreadsheet with links to resources for easy reference until you've exhausted the possibilities and have a good list of finalists.
We first used the sheet to compare South American countries we found interesting. That helped us narrow the list to Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay, and Chile came out on top. We used the sheet a second time on various towns that looked interesting to us to help us plan an in-country tour. Of course, you can score as many as you like and have time to fill out. So the sheet will help you find your top places and it'll reduce your travel time and cost. We strongly recommend you actually visit your favorite places and not rely on research data so that you get a true feeling for the place. What looks interesting online may turn out to be a total disaster in reality, something you never know unless you actually visit it. By the way, you may want to adjust your scores during or after your trip to tune your final scores. Diane was interested in a small town called Talca in Chile because it was a farming area and it had inexpensive land and it was not too far from Santiago. I mean, the plaza was okay, but it just wasn't for us. We just couldn't call it home. So we have high standards and expectations. Is that okay? Also, before you actually make a final purchase on a home, you might consider staying or renting in the area of interest for a while, just to get a really good feeling for what it's like to live there day to day.
Step 5, go and live local. When we were scouting Puerto Rico, we lived like locals. So we went to the grocery store, the gas station, the malls, the movie theater, the local restaurants, because we like to eat out a lot and that's important to us. And we met with some good local real estate agents to get the lay of the land. They had so much inside knowledge and connections to community resources that it made the whole idea of moving there so much easier. And by the way, if you need an introduction to a good local agent anywhere in the US or Puerto Rico, our team is happy to make that happen for you. Click the link in the description below. So as you visit each place you're considering, forget the touristy stuff. Go to the grocery store, go to the gym, go to the yoga studio, go to the nail place. Walk the local trails, check the dog parks, and any other amenity you need for a happy life. Visit local schools, talk to people in restaurants, and if you're thinking of buying a place, definitely talk with a local real estate agent. The idea is to get a feel for the place and imagine yourself living there and see if it's something you might like long term.
So once you've actually visited your finalists, weighed and scored each, it's time to make a choice. Review your spreadsheet scores and actually review your notes of the places you've visited. So I just want to point out that the spreadsheet is really intended to be a helpful guide for you. Ultimately, it's going to be your gut decision that's going to guide your final choice.
So that's our process for deciding where to move next, and we'll be going through it right here on this channel in the coming months. 3 years ago, we moved back to Tahoe from Puerto Rico, but is this the right place for us? We don't know.
As wonderful as it is where we live now, our condo is somewhat small, so we're looking for other options.
So that's our story. What's yours? Are you thinking about moving somewhere in the US? Where to? City, the country, something in between? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're curious about why we left Puerto Rico, check out this video here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.